Chapter 1. The message *. The party was over. The laughter, the music, the noise, all of it had faded into the wet hum of the night. I stood outside the hotel lobby, one hand in my pocket, the other holding a half-finished glass of whiskey. The rain had started to fall, soft at first, then harder, blurring the city lights into long streaks of gold and red. My phone screen glowed in my palm. The last message I sent was still there. The event ends in 10 minutes. Where are you? No reply. Lena had promised she'd come pick me up. It was her idea. After all, you go in my place, Adrian. I've got too much work tonight. She even smiled, that usual calm, practiced smile of hers. The kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Now, 40 minutes later, I was the last one left waiting. Adrian, your wife's still not here. A familiar voice called out. It was Ethan, a business partner of mine, half drunk but still polite. Want me to drop you off? I shook my head. No need. She probably stuck in traffic. He nodded, waved, and got into his car. I kept my smile up until he was gone. Then it vanished. The rain grew heavier. I could feel the damp seeping into my sleeves, but the cold didn't bother me. What bothered me was the silence. I knew Lena wasn't stuck in traffic. She was never late, not unless she wanted to be. After another 10 minutes, I gave up and called a cab. Just as I opened my phone, a new message appeared. Lena, working late. Call a cab yourself. No punctuation. No apology. Just a line, clean, emotionless, efficient. I exhaled through my nose and slipped the phone back into my pocket. It figured. The cab ride home was quiet. I watched raindrops chase each other across the window, the city sliding by in fragments, towers, neon, umbrellas, red lights. Everything looked like a reflection of something that used to be real. Halfway home, my phone buzzed again. It was Daniel, my closest friend from university. Daniel, guess where I am right now? I sighed. Probably somewhere you shouldn't be. A minute later, he sent me a video. The camera shook a little, but I recognized the place immediately. The Marcellini, one of the most exclusive restaurants downtown. And there she was, Lena. She was sitting by the window, her posture relaxed, her hair tucked neatly behind her ear. She was smiling, a soft, genuine smile I hadn't seen in months. Opposite her sat a man. He looked familiar, though the camera was too far to make out his face. Daniel's voice came through, muffled but teasing. Didn't expect Ryan to come back so soon. Heard he just landed this week. Small world. Ryan, her ex. The one she never quite stopped talking about, always in the past tense. Always with that faint sigh that said it still matters. I didn't respond to Daniel. I just texted him back, take a few clear shots for me. He didn't ask why. He never did. When the photos came through, I opened them one by one. Her smile, her hand brushing against his across the table. The soft light painting them like a couple out of a magazine ad. No explanation needed. No excuse worth hearing. I forwarded the pictures to Lena without a single word. Then I turned off my phone. When I got home, the house was dark. I loosened my tie, poured a glass of water, and stood by the window. The rain was still coming down hard, tapping against the glass like a quiet reminder that something had finally broken. 3 years. That's how long our marriage had lasted. 3 years of polite silence and perfect distance. It wasn't love. It was logistics. Her family wanted stability. Mine wanted influence. Together, we made a perfect headline. Two families, one future, a union on paper, a contract signed in champagne. She had her career. I had my company. We didn't fight. We didn't touch. We simply existed, side by side, day after day, like two actors in a scene that never ended. I used to think that was enough. That peace was better than passion. That at least indifference didn't hurt. But watching that video, seeing her lean forward with that smile reserved for someone else, it hurt anyway. I set the glass down and opened my laptop. The screen glowed pale blue in the dark room. My latest project stared back at me, Project SYS-01. An app designed to study emotional behavior, to predict attraction, rejection, and betrayal. It was supposed to be a game, a psychology experiment wrapped in data analytics. I've been testing it on employees, analyzing their responses to simulated romantic interactions. I used to joke that I was building a system to conquer hearts. Funny now. Looking at those words, I felt something else, something sharp and bitter twist inside me. If this was a system built to manipulate emotions, then Lena had just beaten me at my own design. The great irony. I'd written code to control affection, and I'd failed to understand the woman sleeping beside me. Or not sleeping. Apparently at midnight, I got another message. Lena, the rain's too heavy. I'll stay near the office tonight. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, sure, and deleted it before sending. Instead, I closed the laptop, finished the whiskey, and whispered to the empty room, let the game begin. Chapter 2. The return. When I woke up, the rain had stopped. The air was still heavy. The sky outside faintly gray. The clock on the wall read 5:10 a.m. for a moment. I thought I heard the front door unlock. A soft sound, hesitant, then footsteps. I stayed still, eyes half open beneath the blanket. The steps moved slowly through the hallway. Pausing by the bedroom door, I could feel her presence even before she spoke. The door opened. Lena stood there, backlit by the weak dawn light. Her hair was damp, her clothes the same ones she'd worn yesterday. She didn't say anything at first, just watched me, as if waiting for a cue. Then, quietly, Adrian, are you awake? I didn't answer. The silence stretched. She came closer, reached out to pull the blanket off my face. The moment her hand touched it, I pushed it back down, muttering, don't. There was a pause. Then her voice, tight, controlled. It's bad to sleep with your head covered. Then don't worry about it, I said, eyes still shut. I could hear her sigh, a long, tired breath. I was just trying to fix your blanket. Fixing things isn't really your strength, I murmured. The silence that followed said enough. She stood there for a few seconds, maybe waiting for more, then turned and left. When I got up, the sun was already high. The smell of coffee drifted faintly from the kitchen. Lena sat at the dining table in her loungewear, a plate of toast and fruit in front of her. She looked like she'd slept for days, calm, clean, unreadable. She glanced up when I walked in. You're up. Barely. I pulled out a chair opposite her, sat down, and poured myself a glass of water. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The ticking of the wall clock filled the silence between us. Finally, I said, do you want to explain what happened last night? She paused mid-bite, then set her fork down. Ryan came back to town yesterday. We haven't seen each other in years. We just had dinner. Dinner, I repeated slowly. And the lie about working late. Her eyes flickered, just slightly. I didn't want to argue. I knew how it would sound. So you lied instead. She frowned. I was tired, Adrian. I didn't want a scene. I nodded, taking a sip of water. Then you should have chosen someone else to meet him with, she sighed, rubbing her temple. You're overthinking it. It was one meal. He just wanted to catch up. Catch up, I said. You looked happy. That made her stop. She met my eyes for the first time, her expression carefully blank. Since when do you care whether I'm happy or not? It was a sharp question. Too sharp. For a second, I almost smiled, since I realized you saved that smile for someone else. Her face tensed. Don't twist things. I didn't twist anything, I said quietly. Daniel sent me the video. I saw it. Lena's fingers froze around her cup. You asked him to spy on me. I didn't ask, I said. He happened to be there. Her tone sharpened. So you went through my privacy. Your privacy? I leaned back in my chair. Is that what we're calling deceit now? She pushed the plate away and stood up. You're being ridiculous, am I? Her eyes flashed, but she said nothing. The room fell quiet again. Only the sound of rainwater dripping from the balcony rail broke the silence After a moment, she spoke, her voice low, almost resigned. Adrian, this marriage, it's been convenient for both of us. You knew what it was when we started. I didn't promise you love. I laughed softly. No, but I thought maybe you wouldn't give it away so easily either. Her jaw tightened. You're cruel when you want to be. I looked up at her. I learned from the best that did it. She grabbed her phone, muttered something under her breath, and left the room. The door closed harder than it needed to. For a long while, I sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me. Everything between us, the quiet dinners, the unspoken distance, the polite goodnights, it all came rushing back. 3 years of silence, 3 years of pretending that absence was peace. Maybe she thought I didn't feel anything. Maybe she was right. For a while, I didn't. The last night changed the dot. Now I felt something again. Just not love. By noon, I was at the office. My reflection stared back at me from the dark screen of my laptop. Project SYS01, the behavioral app I've been building, glowed faintly in standby mode. The irony wasn't lost on me. A system designed to analyze emotional attachment, to predict attraction, loyalty, even betrayal. I had built it to understand other people. Now I realized I should have used it on myself first. I typed a few commands, then froze at the line of code that appeared. Target A, Lena. Interaction data, active. I stared at the blinking cursor, my jaw tightening. I didn't remember linking her profile to the app, but there it was, active data, patterns, message history, sentiment logs. And beneath that, something new, suggested response, indifference. Emotional withdrawal equals phase 2. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. The system wasn't wrong. Indifference was the perfect punishment. No shouting, no confrontation. Just distanced, slow, and deliberate. The kind that eats at someone until they start doubting themselves. If she wanted to treat our marriage like a game, I'd play, only this time. I'd be the one setting the rules. That night, she sent a short message. Lena, staying at my sister's. Don't wait up. I read it twice. Then I replied, take your time. And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. Chapter 3, the calm before the hunt. 3 days passed. Lena hadn't come home. The first night, she sent a message, staying with my sister. The second night, silence. By the third, not even the dot, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Her absence wasn't loud, but it filled every room in small, invisible ways. The missing perfume in the air, the untouched mug beside the sink, the half-folded laundry on the couch. It didn't hurt. Not the way it should have. It just felt empty. I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, watching the streetlights blink through the thin drizzle outside. This marriage had started as a business transaction, but somewhere along the way, I had let the lines blur. I convinced myself that time could build warmth, the routine could turn into affection. What a joke. People don't change because of time. They change because they have a reason to. And apparently, I hadn't been one. At work, everything looked the same. Meetings, deadlines, the same polite greetings from people who didn't care enough to ask about my personal life. The project, SYS01, was no longer just a project. Every evening, when the office emptied and the lights dimmed, I would sit alone in front of my laptop, staring at the dashboard. The system analyzed emotional behavior, text frequency, tone, timing, sentiment trends. I had designed it to measure human attachment. Now, I was feeding it real data, mine. I logged my messages, her replies, her silences. I let it read between the words. The system didn't judge. It just calculated. By the end of the third night, a new line appeared on the screen. Subject A. Emotional equilibrium equals stable. Suggested response. Continue withdrawal. Effect. Amplified anxiety. And target. I almost laughed. So that's what it took to make her feel something. Distance. Indifference. The same thing she had used against me for years. The next morning, she finally called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Adrian," she said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear something underneath, a tightness. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About us. Now you want to talk," I asked quietly. There was a pause. Then, "I know you're angry." "I'm not," I said. "I just don't see the point." "Don't say that," she said quickly. "Please. I made a mistake." But nothing," I interrupted. "You lied, Lena. Not because you had to, but because it was easy. I didn't." "Yes, you did." She fell silent. I could hear her breathing, slow, uneven. Finally, she said, "Can I come home tonight?" I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "If you want." "Do you want me to?" I smiled faintly. "That's up to you." She hesitated. "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "Just learning." Then I hung up. That evening, I left work early and went to a networking dinner. Nothing special, just the usual corporate faces. But I brought someone with me. Claire, a marketing consultant, smart, graceful, with a quiet confidence that filled a room without effort. We'd met once before through a mutual project. She wasn't someone I had planned to call, until that morning, when I texted her an invitation. She replied instantly, "Sure, I'd love to now." As we walked into the restaurant together, the room seemed to shift. People noticed. They always did. I didn't do it for them, though. I did it for Lena. Halfway through the evening, I saw her, standing at the far end of the room, next to one of her firm's clients. Her eyes widened for half a second when she saw me. Then she forced a polite smile, the kind she used in public. Claire leaned closer, whispering, "That's your wife, right?" I nodded. "For now." Lena's smile faltered. She excused herself from the group and walked over, her heels clicking softly against the floor. "Adrian," she said, her voice calm. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Same," I said. "You're not working late tonight?" Her lips tightened. "Can we talk privately?" "Not now," I said, turning slightly to Claire. "This is Claire, by the way. She's been helping with the new project." Claire smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." Lena nodded stiffly. "Likewise." The silence that followed was razor thin. Then she said, "I'll wait for you outside." "Don't," I replied lightly. "I came with someone." Her expression froze for a split second before she caught herself. "Right," she said. "Of course." And then she walked away. Later that night, I checked SYSO1 again. Subject A. Interaction intensity increased. Emotional stability decreasing. Predicted response. Re-engagement attempt. I stared at the line of text until the letters blurred. It was working. She was starting to feel what I'd felt: uncertainty, doubt, the sting of losing control. But as I watched the data shift, another thought crept in. If the system could predict her, it could predict me to. What if it already was? What if this coldness, this slow, deliberate revenge, wasn't mine anymore? I closed the laptop and sat in silence. Outside, the city lights flickered like fading stars, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled again. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 4. The first crack. Lena came home the next night. I heard the front door open while I was in the study. The soft shuffle of her heels stopped at the hallway. Then silence. I didn't move. After a few seconds, she spoke softly. "I brought dinner." I looked up from my laptop. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," she said. Her voice was careful, measured, the kind people use when they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. I closed the screen. "All right, leave it on the table." She hesitated, then nodded. We ate in silence. She tried to talk a few times, asking about work, about the new project, about Claire. But I gave her nothing more than short answers. Yes, no, it's fine. Each word felt like a wall between us. Finally, she set her chopsticks down. "Adrian, are you punishing me?" I looked up slowly. "Should I be?" She flinched. I said I was sorry. "Sorry doesn't change what you did." "I didn't cheat," she said quickly, almost pleading. We just had dinner. Then why lie? She stopped, searching for words. I didn't want to fight. That's the problem, I said quietly. You never want to fight. You just run. Her eyes glistened. I was wrong. I leaned back, watching her. The part of me that once would have softened didn't move. Not this time. All right, I said. Then prove it, she blinked. I'll stay, I said. No running, no excuses, just a stay. She stared at me for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether I was serious. Then she nodded. I will. For the next few days, she tried. She cooked breakfast, waited for me to come home, asked about my day, even sat beside me while I worked. But everything she did felt calculated, like a performance rehearsed too many times. And maybe I was the same, playing a part I didn't believe in anymore. One evening, as I was reviewing code for SYSO1, she walked in holding the cups of coffee. I made this for you, she said. You've been working till late. Thanks. She sat across from me, hands wrapped around her cup. Adrian, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Who's Claire to you? I didn't look up. She works with me. She looked close. Work requires closeness, I said evenly. That kind. She pressed. I finally met her eyes. You're jealous. She looked away. Maybe I am. I smiled faintly. Good. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? Good. It means you still care, I said. She stared at me, her lips parting slightly, like she wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. When she finally spoke, her voice was trembling. You've changed. Maybe I just stopped pretending. Later that night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The rain was falling again, soft, steady, endless, for the first time. She was the one turning in her sleep, restless beside me. Every sigh, every small shift, was an echo of my own nights from months before. Back then, I was the one who couldn't sleep, the one who reached for her warmth and found only cold air. Now, she was living it. SYSO1 had predicted this. Subject A. Regret phase initiated. Suggested action. Maintain distance. I had built that system to manipulate emotions, not to mirror them, but sometimes, when I read its messages, it felt like it was talking about me too. Because no matter how much I told myself I was in control, I wasn't sure anymore. A few days later, David came by my office. He tossed his phone on the table. You're trending again. What for? I asked. Claire posted something. A photo. You two at that dinner. I frowned. She shouldn't have. It's not that bad, David said. You look happy. That word hit harder than I expected. Happy. I hadn't thought about happiness in months, maybe years. When Lena found out, she didn't confront me. She didn't yell or cry. She just started changing. She texted more, smiled when I came home, cooked my favorite meals, one she hadn't made since our first year together. She was trying, but it all felt too late. One night, she came into my study holding a small gift box. What's this? I asked. Something I bought for you. She said. Inside was a silver pen, engraved with my initials. You used to say you wanted something personal for work, she said softly. I remembered. I turned it in my hand, feeling its weight. Thank you, I said. Her eyes brightened for a second. Does that mean? It means I appreciate it, I said. Her smile faded. Just that, I nodded. Just that. She left the study without another word. When the door clicked shut, I sat there for a long time. I should have felt satisfied. It was working. But all I felt was tired. The revenge, the control, the fake calm. It was all starting to blur. I opened SYSO1 again. A new line flashed on the screen. Warning. Emotional deviation detected. Subject. User. I stared at it, unblinking. For the first time, I couldn't tell if I was still the one running the experiment or if the experiment was running me. Chapter 5. When the mask slips. The pen she gave me sat on my desk for 3 days. I didn't use it. Didn't throw it away either. It just stayed there. A small, silver reminder that she was still trying, every night. She'd peek into my study and say the same thing. Don't stay up too late. And every night, I'd nod without looking up. It was routine, mechanical, like everything else between us. But on the fourth night, she didn't leave me. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice quieter this time. Adrian, can you look at me? I hesitated, then turned. She stood there in a white nightgown, her hair loose, her eyes tired. You used to talk to me, she said, even if it was just about work. That was before, I replied. Before what? Before I realized silence says more than words ever could. She frowned. You're doing this on purpose. What am I doing? Pushing me away, she said. You think I don't see it? I leaned back in my chair. You don't need me to push you away. You've been doing that yourself for years. Her voice cracked. I'm trying, Adrian. I really am. Trying now doesn't erase the past. I know, she said, tears filling her eyes. But I want to fix it. I don't want to lose you. You already did, I said quietly. She froze. For a moment, I thought she might walk away, like always. But she didn't. Instead, she crossed the space between us and grabbed my wrist. Then make me earn it back, she said. Her touch was warm, desperate, and for a split second, I almost believed her. I pulled my hand away. You can't earn something that's gone. The words hit her like a slap. She took a step back, trembling. You're cruel. I looked her in the eye. No, Lena. I'm honest. She stared at me for a long time, eyes red, lips trembling, then turned and left the room. When the door closed, I exhaled slowly. My hands were shaking. It was supposed to be easy. She hurt me, so I hurt her back. Simple. But nothing about this felt simple anymore. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast, packed my things, even kissed my cheek before I left. It was unnatural, like she was forcing the illusion of a marriage that had already died. At the office, Claire noticed. You look exhausted, she said. Just not sleeping much. I muttered. You and your wife okay? I didn't answer. She sighed softly. You know, sometimes when you try too hard to prove you don't care, you end up proving the opposite. Her words stayed with me longer than I wanted them to. That night, Lena waited for me again, dressed up, makeup perfect, a soft smile on her face. Dinner's ready, she said. The table was set with candles and wine. It looked like something out of a movie, too perfect to be real. I wanted to start over, she said quietly. No lies, no coldness, just us. I stared at her. You think dinner fixes everything? No, she said, but it's a start. I sighed. Lena, please, she said, her voice breaking. Just one meal. That's all I'm asking. So I sat down. For the first few minutes, neither of us spoke. The clink of cutlery filled the silence. Then she finally said it. I saw Claire again today. I didn't react. So, she came to the firm. She wanted to talk to me. That caught my attention. About what? She said. You're not yourself lately, Lena said softly. She's worried. I set my fork down. And you believed her? I didn't say that. But you thought it, I said. Lena looked down. Adrian, I know I broke her trust, but she doesn't know you like I do. You're different now. Colder. It scares me. I almost laughed. You're scared now? After all this time? Her eyes filled again. Stop twisting everything I say. Then stop pretending to care. I do care. She shouted. The sound echoed through the room. Sharp, raw, real. For a moment, she wasn't perfect or composed. She was human. Her tears fell fast. And before I could stop her, she whispered, I miss you. Even when you're right in front of me. That silence that followed felt heavier than anger. I wanted to tell her that part of me missed her too, or at least the version of her I thought existed, but I did in single quotes instead. I stood up. I'm going out, I said. Where? Know where you need to know. Adrian, don't wait up. I left before she could answer. I didn't go far. Just drove until the city lights blurred into streaks of color on the windshield. Eventually, I pulled over and sat there, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't recognize the man looking back. Cold, calculated, and somehow lost. When I got home, Lena was asleep on the couch, still in her dress. A half-empty glass of wine beside her. Her phone lay on the table, screen still glowing. A message thread was open. It wasn't to me. It was to Makoto. I don't know what to do anymore. He's not the same. I think I've already lost him. My chest tightened. But I didn't scroll further. I didn't need to. She was scared, confused, maybe even guilty. But she was still thinking of him. Maybe I'd never really been the one she loved. Maybe I was just the one who stayed. I walked past her, into the study, and turned on my laptop. SYSO1 flashed awake on the screen. Subject A. Emotional collapse nearing. Suggested action. Initiate final phase. I stared at the words until they blurred. Final phase. What did that even mean anymore? Was I punishing her? Or myself? Chapter 6. The final facet. Words final phase initiated blinked on the screen. For a moment, I just watched them flash, as if the computer were waiting for my permission to ruin whatever was left of us. I typed one line. Execute. The cursor blinked. Then the system began its analysis. Every message, every silence, every hesitation between us mapped into neat little graphs. It was supposed to feel like victory. It didn't. The longer I watched, the more it looked less like data and more like a mirror. Every drop in her emotional stability matched a rise in mine. Every time she reached out, the algorithm recorded it as progress. Progress toward what? Misery? The screen dimmed, reflecting my face back at me. Tired eyes, unshaven, someone I barely knew. That's when the power flickered and the monitor went black. Silence. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was mercy. Either way, I left it off. When I stepped out of the study, Lena was standing in the hallway. She looked pale, eyes swollen from crying. Were you up all night again? She asked. Couldn't sleep. I said. She hesitated. Can we talk? About what this time? About us. I almost laughed. That's all we ever talk about. No, she said softly. You talk around us. Never about it. She took a slow breath, and for once, she didn't look defensive or proud. Just tired. I lied to you, she said. Not because I wanted to hurt you, but because I didn't know how to tell you I was empty. Makoto came back, and it reminded me of a version of myself I lost. I thought maybe if I saw him again, I'd find her. But all I found was guilt. I said nothing. She went on, her voice trembling. You didn't deserve that. You never did. It should have felt like closure. Instead, it just felt heavy, like the end of something that could have mattered if we hadn't destroyed it first. Lena, I said quietly, do you still love him? She shook her head. No, I don't even think I loved him the way I thought I did. I just loved who I used to be when he was around. And me. She looked up, eyes glistening. You scare me, not because you hurt me, but because I know I hurt you and you didn't even scream. You just disappeared. That hit harder than I expected. She was right. I'd become everything I once hated. Distant, manipulative, silent. I exhaled slowly. I built something to control emotions. Lena, I turned it on you. I tracked every word, every pause, every heartbeat of our marriage like it was an experiment. She frowned. What are you talking about? A system. SYSO1. It's how I planned every move since that night. Every silence, every dinner, every cold answer. Her hand flew to her mouth. You're joking. I wish I was. She stared at me, speechless. Then, quietly, you used a program to punish me. I used it to punish both of us. I said. I just didn't realize it. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Why would you do that? Because it was easier than feeling. She sank onto the couch, wiping her face. So what now? Another phase? Another test? I looked at her for a long time. No, I said finally. It ends here. She blinked. What do you mean? I walked back into the study, grabbed my laptop, and placed it on the table between us. One press of a button, and SYSO1 came alive again, its interface cold and perfect. See this? I said. This is everything I used to keep score. Every message, every call, every emotion. Lena's eyes darted across the screen. Delete it, she whispered. I nodded. My finger hovered over the key. For a second, I hesitated, not because I wanted to keep it, but because destroying it meant facing myself without the armor. Then I pressed delete. The system blinked once, twice, and vanished. Just like that, 3 years of numbers turned into nothing. Lena exhaled shakily. Does it feel better? I leaned back. No, but it feels real. We sat in silence for a long time. The morning light slipped through the curtains, painting the room in gold. I don't know what happens next, she said quietly. Neither do I admitted. Maybe we start over, separately. She nodded slowly. Maybe that's the only way to stop hurting each other. When she stood, I saw her shoulders relax for the first time in months. She walked to the door, paused, and looked back. Adrian, she said, whatever this was, thank you for finally being honest. The door closed behind her, soft but final. That evening, I sat alone in the quiet house. The walls felt lighter somehow, as if they could breathe again. I picked up the silver pen she'd given me and finally used it, scribbling a single line. On a blank page, sometimes. The only way to win is to stop playing. The rain started again outside, but this time, it sounded different, gentler. I poured a glass of water instead of whiskey, opened the window, and let the wind in. No system, no calculations, no mass. Just me. And for the first time in a long while, that felt enough. Chapter 7. The Fall of Control. It had been 2 weeks since Lena left. The apartment was spotless. I cleaned it twice, maybe 3 times. I couldn't stand the way her perfume still lingered on the curtains, or how her slippers were still beside the bed. I should have thrown them out, but I didn't. They just stayed there, like the quiet witnesses waiting for a story that had already ended. Every morning I still brewed 2 cups of coffee, one black, one with milk. It took me a week to break the habit. By then, the second cup always went cold before I noticed. Work went on as if nothing had happened. Meetings, emails, numbers on a screen, all of it dull, mechanical. I spoke less, listened more. People said I'd mellowed out, that my temper was gone. Maybe they were right, or maybe I just didn't care anymore. Once, revenge had been fuel. Now it felt like smoke. At lunch one day, David dropped by my office. He hadn't shaved, and his usual grin was gone. Man, you look like hell, he said, half joking. I've been worse. I closed my laptop. What brings you here? He leaned against the doorframe. I ran into Lena's assistant downtown. She quit the firm. Said she moved to another city. I nodded slowly. Good for her. You're not gonna do anything? What's left to do? David hesitated. I thought you burned the world down after what she did. I gave a short laugh. Maybe I did, and maybe I burned myself first. He didn't have an answer to that. Just patted my shoulder and left. That night, I found one of Lena's old mugs in the kitchen cupboard. A plain white ceramic one, chipped near the handle. She used to drink from it every morning, always the same spot by the window. I remember her saying, I like things that last even when they're broken, back then. I didn't understand what she meant. I held the mug under the running faucet and watched the water fill it, spill over, and disappear down the drain. My reflection warped and trembled on the surface. It was ridiculous. But for the first time in months, I felt something crack open inside me. Not anger, not regret, just a tired ache, like the silence after a storm. I put on my coat and walked out. The streets were empty. It had rained earlier, and the air smelled like cold metal. I drove without direction until I reached the riverbank where Lena and I had taken our wedding photos years ago. The willow trees had grown taller. The benches were damp and empty. I stood there for a while, holding the mug in my hand. This is stupid, I muttered, but I stayed. Back then, we'd smile for the camera, pretending it meant something. To people who wanted the picture to look real. Even if the love wasn't, now the same wind brushed my face, colder this time, but familiar. I took a deep breath and threw the mug into the water. It didn't shatter. It just disappeared beneath the surface without a sound. The ripples spread, then faded into stillness. Watching them fade, I realized that was exactly how love ends. Not with a crash, just quiet, gradual disappearance. I stood there until my fingers went numb. When I got home, the clock read past midnight. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was just there, a kind of peace I hadn't known before. I used to think control made me strong, that if I could plan every move, I could avoid being hurt. But control was just another word for fear. Fear of losing, fear of being left, fear of not being enough. Maybe letting go wasn't weakness. Maybe it was survival. I turned off my phone for the first time in months. No system notifications, no messages, no memories popping up on the screen. Just darkness. The rain started again outside, soft, steady. I lay down and listened to it hit the windows. For the first time, it didn't sound lonely. It just sounded real. Before sleep took me, I whispered into the dark, "Goodbye, Lena." Not as a curse, not as a wish, just a truth. Chapter 8. After the rain. It was spring again. The city felt different now, brighter somehow, even though nothing had really changed. Maybe it was just me. The rain had finally stopped, and for the first time in a long while, I could smell the air without thinking of the past. Mornings had become simple. I made 1 cup of coffee instead of 2. I'd sit by the window and watch the street come alive. Kids rushing to school, vendors opening their stalls, people carrying umbrellas even when it wasn't raining. Ordinary things, quiet things. I had started teaching part-time at a local business institute. Nothing fancy, just mentoring young entrepreneurs who thought success was everything. I saw myself in them sometimes, the same hunger, the same arrogance. But now, when they asked how to win, I told them something different. Winning isn't always about getting ahead, I'd say. Sometimes it's about learning when to stop fighting. They'd look at me funny, like I was speaking another language. Maybe they needed time to understand. I sure did. One afternoon, after class, I walked past the old cafe where Lena and I had our first real conversation. The one that wasn't about work or family pressure. It had been 3 years since then. The place was still there. Same wooden chairs, same chalkboard menu. I didn't go in. I just stood outside, listening to the faint hum of laughter drifting through the open window. And that's when I saw the envelope. It was in my mailbox when I got home. No sender's name. Just my address written in neat, familiar handwriting. My name's Adrian. I knew that handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. No explanations. No apologies. Just 5 words. Thank you for deleting it. Underneath, a small pressed lilac petal, the same kind she used to keep in her journals. I sat down, letter in hand, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't love. But it was peace. The quiet kind that comes after the rain. I didn't write back. There was nothing left to say. We had both done enough talking in our silence. That night, I walked home slowly after dinner. The city lights flickered against the puddles, and people were laughing under street lamps. Someone somewhere was singing softly out of tune. Everything felt alive again, raw, imperfect, real. I thought about Lena, where she might be, what kind of life she built. I hoped she was okay. I hoped she'd found her own kind of peace too. The clouds were breaking apart above me, thin streaks of gold between them. The air still smelled faintly of rain, but the wind was warm. I stopped in the middle of the street, closed my eyes, and listened to the world breathe. Maybe we never really heal. Maybe the scars just become part of who we are. Reminders of what we've lost and what we've learned. I smiled a little. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about control or revenge or the system I built to protect myself. I wasn't thinking about Lena or the past or what could have been. I was just here, standing in the middle of everything I used to be afraid of, and realizing I wasn't afraid anymore. As I crossed the street, a car splashed through a puddle nearby, spraying water across my shoes. I laughed under my breath and kept walking. After the rain, nothing was perfect, but everything was finally real. That's where the rain ends and peace begins. If you felt something along the way, leave a note, share a thought, or subscribe so you'll be here for the next sunrise.